the person was dying. So in other words, she was a dying woman. And she was at her last resort. She was at the end. I'm going to read over in the Message Bible, and it says, a woman who had suffered a condition of hemorrhaging for 12 years. A long succession of physicians had treated her badly, taking all her money and leaving her worse off than before. And that reminds me of how we at times can go and try and find other solutions or find other problems, but those problems, those solutions are not it. And it ends up setting us back more than it does putting us forward. She spent all she had, all the money that she had on the physician, but no one could cure her of it. It only made things worse. Now listen to this. When our backs are up against the wall, that's when we want to turn to God. Keeping it real. We made him our last resort instead of seeking him first. Just that simple. For example, when your marriage or your relationship is on its last leg, suffering or dying from a medical condition, when you are broke or down to your last dime, when your children is giving you hell, all of your addictions, when we seek other alternatives of fixing situations instead of seeking God first, we make things worse. We make a mountain out of a molehill. Then once they're worse, then we expect Jesus to come behind us and to fix and to clean up our mess that we created. Some of us also get comfortable with our issues. And some of us have begun to like our issues and rather keep them the way they are. And I know that personally because I know, growing up or even still then, I always, had an attitude. And things like that. And, he was dating at the time, but he would say, why are you like this? Why are this? Because this is just the way I am. This is the way that God made me. And it's either you're going to like it or you're just going to leave. But in actuality, that's just nothing but an excuse because God didn't create us that way. He created us in the likeness of his image. Alright? Nobody can handle things like Jesus can, for his power exceeds anything that man can do. For when man said we should die, he said we should live. For the Bible says that we should live and we should not die. Matthew 5:27 says, when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines touch as to bring a bodily part into contact with, especially so as to perceive through the tactile sense, handle or feel gently, usually with the intent to understand or appreciate. It also says to lay hands upon one afflicted with intent to heal. Some of us touch the wrong thing, or we want the wrong thing healing us. We cut all these corners trying to get a temporary solution or a quick fix, and then it turns into a tragic situation. Blood is the stream of life, but losing it meant that she was a woman dying among the living. That was never acceptable because it was the belief of the time that anything dead or dying should be left alone. Her coming out while bleeding meant that she was subject to stoning and death because she went against the Mosaic law. It was the order of the day. It was the law because Jesus had not fulfilled the law by himself on the cross yet. It was the Mosaic custom and tradition of the day. So in order to even think about coming out from under social constraints and restraints, she had to decide to break the condition of tradition so that her condition might be healed. She had to be a mighty maverick. She had to think outside the box. Even though she was dying, she risked death in order for her to live. She pressed through the crowd in order to get what she needed. She never let the people around her stop from going to get what she needed to get, which was Jesus, just a touch of piece of him. We all need to push through to get a piece of him. For everything we need is in him: joy, peace, grace, mercy, love, and especially healing. She touched the H-E-M so she could be healed by the H-I-M. It was important to have the touch of Christ on her issue, for she did it her way for far too long. For some of us have been suffering for far too long, and it's time to let Jesus touch us. Mark in the 28th verse says, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. It brings me back to reminds me of a song by Donald Lawrence. And it says, sometimes you have to encourage yourself. Sometimes you have to speak victory over yourself. No matter how you feel, speak a word and you will be healed. Speak over yourself and encourage yourself in the Lord. She had to talk to herself, but she had to encourage herself. She had exhausted everything else she knew. She had to have faith in the man that she heard so much about. Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is in general the persuasion of the mind that a certain statement is true. Its primary idea is trust. And we put our faith in the wrong things. Men and women. Dr. Phil and Oprah, which makes things worse. Money. Ourselves. Doctors, drugs, and alcohol. That's what we put our faith into. But Luke 17:6 says, and the Lord said, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye might say unto the sycamore tree, be thou plucked up by the root, and be thou planted in the sea, and it should obey you. God gave us power, and God gave us that power to be able to speak to our situation. There is life and death in the power of your tongue. So whatever you speak, that's what's going to happen. If you speak death on your situation, that's what's going to happen. You speak life on your situation, get life. Having faith the size of a mustard seed is the minimum requirement. Big faith equals big things, and small faith equals small things. Mark 5 verse 29 says, immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. The blood dried up, and she felt perfectly well all over, and she felt better than she felt better more than she had ever felt in her life. For those that are cured by natural means or by modern day medicine, recover their strength slowly. If you have the flu, they put you on penicillin. You have to take the medicine all the way until the end. And even after the first couple of days that you take it, you still have a fever. You're still weak. You're still all that. But because she touched Jesus on his hem, all at once, immediately, she recovered immediately. So now we know that it's a miraculous healing. We know that was nothing but God because of her faith. For those that are cured by it was her faith that warranted an immediate response from Christ. We can't always expect Jesus to take the first step. We have to make that initial first step. It is at that moment when we feel like he's not going to show up that we have to learn and to have faith. For it wasn't her turn, but it was her time. She didn't wait until she touched him to have faith. She didn't wait until then. It started way before then. She began to have faith before she even approached him. When she took the risk of being stoned to death by leaving the house, by pushing through the crowd and causing everyone she touched to become unclean, as well as she was, to get to this man named Jesus. For it was her faith that got her to him. That same kind of faith made miracles happen in the Bible. For it was the 3 Hebrew boys who had faith in that fiery furnace. For it was Daniel that had faith in that lion's den. For it was faith that allowed David to sling that giant with one small stone. For it was faith that Peter had when he walked on the water. This same faith can change your situation, it can change your circumstances, and it can change your condition. Mark 30 through the 32nd verse. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see people crying against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Jesus knew, like I said in King James Version, Jesus knew that virtue, or in other words, power, had left his body. But rather by an agility of spirits in the exerting of it, and the innate and inseparable pleasure he had in doing good. Jesus knew who touched him. He knew who touched him, but he wanted her to come forth. She felt that since there was a huge crowd, her identity could be easily concealed. But guess what? We cannot hide from God. Jesus. For in the disciples, in a way, I feel, almost ridiculed Jesus' question, as if the question Jesus asked was improper. In the Message it says, his disciples said, "What are you talking about? With this crowd pushing and jostling you, you're asking who touched me? Dozens have touched you." And also in the King James, it uses the word thrown, which means to choke. It's used of thrown by a crowd almost to a point of suffocation. If I could use my spiritual imagination, I would really want to believe that the disciples were adolescents. I say adolescents between the ages of 13 and 20 because of how simple-minded they were. Because, yes, they knew who Jesus was, and they had a personal relationship with him, but they were narrow-minded. They had tunnel vision. It was black and white, no gray area. They should have already knew that Jesus was up to something. Jesus wasn't trying to blast this lady out or reprimand her for touching him. He wanted her to show herself. He wanted to commend and encourage her faith by his own act, and indeed might warrant and confirm the cure. That's all he wanted. Mark 5 verse 33 says, "Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear told him the whole truth." She came, like I said, she came to Jesus fearful and trembling. Then she threw herself at Jesus' feet, humbling herself before him almost in a childlike manner. We should not be ashamed of what Jesus has done for us. When we have been called to share our story, we have to share our testimony, not for the glorification of us, but to praise, uplift, and magnify Jesus Christ for what he has done for us. Mark 5 verse 34 says, he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Christ puts honor in faith because faith gives honor to Christ. To all of you here, have faith in Jesus. But when you finally touch Jesus, know that your faith can make you whole. Not a woman, not a man, but just the touch of Jesus. A whole faith warranting a response. The Greek for healing means saved, both physical healing, be free from your suffering, and spiritual salvation. That's where go in peace comes from. One point in time, I was this woman. I was this woman who had an issue that I thought that it was a part of me. And I had come to realize that it wasn't. Having this hard exterior, attitudes, not caring didn't. Going off of whoever said anything to me. But I had to realize why it was. My father died at the age of 13. My father died when I was 13 years old. He was an awesome man. Awesome man. Not only that, little known secret, not to make people mad, but I gotta free myself. Just like this lady did. I was supposed to be put in somebody's care. But because of me being put in somebody's care, with their lack of with them not being responsible, put me in an uncomfortable position, put me in a position to be raped. At the age of 10. I kept all that bottled up inside of me. All of it bottled up inside of me. Taking it out on did not knowing and not understanding why. Taking it out on everybody else that's around me. But it wasn't until it was something that my mother couldn't do for me. It was something that my husband couldn't do for me. It was something that none of my family or friends could do for me. I had to go and find Jesus on my own. And that's what we have to do. Once we are in that position where we don't know, we don't understand what's going on, that means that that's when it's time for us to kneel down before God and to actually touch Him and to But even though I felt and I thought that those things were a part of me, yes, it did happen. But it didn't happen to me for me to have a negative reaction. It happened to me to make me into the woman who God wanted me to be. That I may be able to, just like Jesus wanted that woman to do, that I may be able to share my testimony and be able to, so He may be able to get the glorification of God, so God can get glory. So, thank you very much. That's the end of my sermon.
One more time for mercy. Mercy. I want to ask our officers will come. Open the doors of the church. Our officers will come. Oftentimes you don't even understand that you think you're dealing with something you ain't even dealing with the surface, you're dealing with something that happened a long time ago. I'll tell you something. I thank God for my wife. I thank God for my wife. Even in our adolescence, even when some folk will be irresponsible, you will come and find out that God is never irresponsible. But when we think that we're on our own, God is still responsible for us. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that. Man, oh, come on. Let's do because this is her song. Let's do her song. Let's do her song. Come on, y'all know this. We're going to do something she knows, but let's do her song. The doors of the church are now open. One may be looking for membership. If you're looking for membership, now is your opportunity. If you're looking for prayer, now is your opportunity to come on down. Give myself away. I give myself away so you can use me. I give myself away. Oh, I give myself away so you.